Thank you. I don't even know how to spell provocateur. Yeah, so a lot of people were today characterized as problem solvers. I like to see myself as an opportunity generator. So, good afternoon, and thanks David and Alan for giving me the opportunity to share some of my ideas. So this is our box. This is where I live and work. And we have an open door policy, so very much it's like a science museum. People come and go. And I think the way we try to work is knowledge-based. So we talk about activity-based and team-based, knowledge-based. That also means we try to attach documents to rooms and not to emails. So the idea is you rock up in a room, you open up your iPad, and here are the documents you need. So you don't go to an inbox and download an email attachment you got 5 weeks ago. And that's a place where we try to generate ideas. And I want to take you on a journey that was inspired by our students. And our students say, when I leave the university, I start at the end of the food chain, and everybody expects that I gain some experiences. How can I accelerate that journey? And we can't give you experience, but we can give you different thinking habits. And I want to take you on a journey how you think differently, which is harder to teach than how to act differently. I gave a similar talk a week ago at the Australian CFO Summit, maybe not the most entertaining kind of crowd. And the first question I had to them was like, how many of you have a balance sheet and profit and loss statement that describes your world in 3 years? I know a pool of 100 people, I think nobody said, that's me. So we talk about foresight, innovation, the future, and then there are the guys who kind of count your money, and none of them has an understanding of how does my revenue, my cost, or my asset base look like. We can generate a lot of ideas. In most companies, unless you're an NGO, it will come down to money. And what I want to talk about today is that I assume in the age of digitization, it comes more down to a risk assessment of your revenue than a risk assessment of your cost base, which matters a lot in the age of automation. So I only have two main concepts. And the first one is what I call revenue resilience. So how do you ensure in your role as a corporate innovator that your organization will be revenue resilient? Meaning no matter what hits you, you will survive, or anti-fragility, you even grow and generate new revenue streams. And the second one is when we acknowledge, yes, we want to become revenue resilient, how do I do this? I believe everything that has been said about design thinking and listening to your customers. I also very much believe in very proactive thinking. And I want to give you 7 ideas that in some cases might work on Monday morning, 9 o'clock, to generate some ideas. So start talking about automation. So the age of automation was characterized by problem solving. I need to find savings in my supply chain. I have to gain operational efficiency. I become a Lean or Six Sigma expert. I eliminate bottlenecks. And there are tons of textbooks, tons of systems, and it's a commodity you can buy on the street. And the age of automation has meant that organizations were quite streamlined. They look at today, they find a problem today, and they try to solve a problem today. What you see here is a quote from a large case study published in 2012. Typical success story. The only issue is, there was Kodak, yeah? So here's a large IT vendor, and they published this case study. They carried all their customers to Kodak to highlight how efficient they are. And Kodak was worldwide recognized an incredibly automated, cost-efficient organization. They were very cost-resilient, but not revenue resilient. And revenue resilience is much harder. In most cases, we don't even know how to do this. And that is what the age of digitization will do to you. In the age of automation, that was less a concern. The age of digitization means that very different players, in most cases technology companies, will be dangerous to you. And I don't think any company, unless you're really, really asset intensive, will be protected. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So as we all know, tax industry is the classical example. I was interviewed 2 days ago, and then the Australian talked about it, how Australia Post's biggest competitor today is Uber. So this is not just a competition for taxi, this is the biggest competition for Australia Post. In downtown Manhattan, Uber ships your parcels, everything on demand. And when the taxi drivers went on strike globally, the demand for Uber services tripled. because everybody Googled, and it was quite compelling value proposition. And in Victoria, here in Australia, as you might know, the first Uber licenses got handed out. So bad luck for you that you spent $300,000 on a driver license. Now you do 10 hours of health and safety, and you become an Uber driver. Some, the very old ones in the room, might remember a time that people used to pay for SMS. I've got a 13-year-old. I tried to explain there was a life, and people would pay for phone calls. And he struggles. So this is what we call a digital public good. So public goods are firework or streetlight or defense. A digital public good is what you can access when you switch on your iPad or your phone. Nobody's excluded, you don't compete, and maps or messaging, communication has converted into digital public good. So if you try to make money out of this, you struggle. It's like trying to sell streetlight. Then LinkedIn and Seek. So what our students often struggle with, and many professionals as well, we can talk about a single case, 3D printing, LinkedIn, or social or wearable computing. What we don't understand is the mega trend behind it. And the mega trend behind an organization like LinkedIn is community first, product second. 99.9% of all organizations think the opposite way. Let's create a product, a service, and find some customers. If you're Facebook, TripAdvisor, LinkedIn, or Strava, you think the opposite. You first create a community, and then find a product. My students most likely could build WhatsApp in a couple of weekends. We cannot generate 800 million users. So you can see how the commercial value of these organizations is shifting. GPS devices, of course, are gone. I'll talk about Airbnb in a second and the idea of very light asset models. And very soon, I guess that one of the last regulated industries, real estate, will also disappear. And I never got the idea why anybody would get $15,000 to hand over photocopies on a Saturday morning anyway. Facebook, and you could predict this. And the beauty about revenue resilience is, if you look out of the window, you can see what's coming. So when Facebook, years ago, recruited a gentleman working for PayPal and said, you're in charge for Facebook Messenger, the writing's on the wall that, of course, your duty is to pump money through those channels. Guess what? Since last week, that's what you can do. So you're a retail bank, and he's just a competition in the making. But unlike you, they've got 1 billion customers, and none of them will ever recall a world there with BSB or account numbers. And I try to explain this to my son as well, that in the old days, you would go to a banking homepage, and you would remember BSB and account numbers. It's very hard to comprehend. And you call your bank customer-centered? But you have to take part in the life of a bank to deal with them? And so it's quite amusing when organizations talk about customer centricity and they have that sort of working. And of course, in our very own industry, massive open online competition. So first of all, in the first part, let's build up awareness. Awareness for what is revenue resilience. And revenue resilience now means try the first assessment stage, understand, is my current revenue stream in danger? And that's a piece of massive research we do right now, and this is where we are at our current thinking. Now, Michael Port and others have spoken about this, but the digital age has accelerated this conversation. I take you through 3 of those items, and I mentioned some of them already. But what we try to work out is, maybe more with CFOs, try to work out to what extent is your current revenue in danger. It's like a risk assessment of your income streams. And you can see, like item number 4, most companies don't care if you're a corporation, they just want to consume a service. It's quite amusing when some banks or large companies in Australia say we are a trusted brand. That was maybe the case in the physical world. And you can see how organizations like Telstra try to sell movies when Netflix or Apple might be much cooler. So many product brands don't carry over in the digital world. So I'll just give you the first 3 bullet points to take you through them in more detail. So the first one is what I mentioned before. Ask yourself, is my product today or tomorrow a digital public good? And if this is the case, customers will be conditioned that they're not paying for it. So if 41% of all YouTube inquiries are about education, can I ever really consume the idea of paying for education? Maybe I pay for an assessment and delivery, but the sheer upskilling, do I really pay for this? Healthcare. I have doubts that in a couple of years, people will go to their GP in suburbia, pay for car parking, wait, and then tell them, I've got some pain. The customer will know what their problem is. The diagnosis will be a digital public good. Therapy might take a while, but even this might happen. Of course, navigation systems and an SMS, and even like recruitment. And we work with a number of recruitment companies on how to make them revenue resilient, and it won't be by automating the the recruitment process. The second one, and this is what the digital age is doing to you in particular, is your customers can become your competitor. That only works when they have assets that you tend to provide. So we had yesterday a speaker from Oxford, and he talked about the jobs and industries in danger. What can be automated? And the number one item was accommodation. You can imagine the hotel where you just rock up and you don't need anyone. But then I said, but look at Airbnb. Airbnb has, I think, more than 500,000 properties. Airbnb creates micro revenue. So what happens on the one side, the way we generate value, it's less happening in those light asset models within a corporation, but happens by the crowd. In 10 years, many of you, or many of your kids, might have multiple income streams. We call it micro revenue. You buy today a 3D printer in Australia, and for the day you switch it on at home, you're part of a network, and you provide 3D printing as a service to your neighbors. Do this, go home, you want to have anything printed 3D, and there will be neighbors popping up left, right, and center, offering 3D printing as a service. That's today, that's not tomorrow. And that's Australia, not Silicon Valley. So these are all models that show you that the crowd, in many cases, could be your biggest competitor. And I also assume that the days for those big consulting companies are numbered. And it's hard to believe that you will still keep on feeding 50, 60,000 people when potentially you can just crowdsource on the spot what is needed. And you can see the tweet here from Marriott when they said, we want to add 30,000 rooms. That means construction work and new hotels. And Airbnb said, we do this in the next 2 weeks. Second comment, many companies work on strategy 2020 right now. That's in 5 years. 5 years ago, Airbnb didn't exist. So I find it also quite amusing when companies try to pretend to know how 2020 will look like. It's not so much where you will be, but how do you become revenue resilient along the way when you don't know what will happen to you and your industry. And the third one is, of course, when complete new products emerge. In many cases, they are technology intensive. We work with the airport. Brisbane Airport, by the way, since this week, the first airport that got rid of the departure card. Like vouching, which is mandatory here, Australia is one of the few countries where you have to fill out a piece of paper when you leave or come to the country. I never understood, and I asked customs why, and I still don't understand. But anyway, so we did design thinking, and we took our students to the airport, and all they did is they developed an app for it. A couple of weeks later, what you do is you download the Brisbane Airport app, fill out your details. Today, or since Wednesday, which is today, by the way, you rock up at the airport, you hold your barcode, and you print the card, which is quite funny, because then you hand over a piece of paper to customs. It's just customs needs 5 years to adopt this. So everything is digital. You make it a piece of paper, give it to customs, so they can do optical character recognition. So yeah, it's today in the press if you want to read it. This example shows you how easy it is via design thinking. Bunch of students a few weekends later to eliminate paper. But when we talk to the airport, we try to work out what does revenue resilience mean for you? And what they tell us is our biggest competition is video conferencing. When video conferencing becomes so brilliant that people don't have to travel anymore, that I could be in Brisbane and not here, and you still get the same pleasure or not. then business travel will disappear. And so we have to think about value that is generated in different ways. And this is something that makes you very, very nervous, of course. So these are three elements, and there are more to it. But we encourage organizations to, first of all, build up awareness. Is my revenue in danger? The second one is now positive thinking. What do I do about it? And that's my way of seeing the world. And what you see here is the typical Cardo model, or the idea of hygiene factors. So from the left to the right, you see fulfillment. From the left to the right, fulfillment. From the bottom to the top, happiness. So top right corner, customer's very happy, and I do a really great work. The red curve is this typical hygiene factor. When your customer will say, finally, and not thank you. So I was in Canberra, we talked to the Department of Human Services, and they told me, Michael, guess what? After many, many years and millions of dollars, every Australian only has to change the address once. Centrelink, Medicare, ATO, child support agency, and so on. I said, that's a massive step for DHS. That's a very small step for mankind. This is what I expect. As a matter of fact, I expect that I really change my address only once. Go to mywave.me, and you can do this very soon. Mywave.me. Mywave.me is a vendor management system, not a customer relationship management system. You know the old days when we had companies, and we put automation, and then we managed the relationship with our customers, and our poor customer had 20 or 50 different lives? In the digital world, this will not happen. In the digital world, you will manage vendor relationships. And you might be invited to take part in my life. So in mywave.me, there's my bank, my telco, my health, or my career planner. And if you're lucky, I'll open the door for you. So the digital world will put it upside down. So the red line means once you're finished, your customer will say finally and not thank you. When QUT launches an app, so you can follow our lectures live on that app, I'm sure 90% of our students will say finally. They won't say wow. But it's a massive step for us. So below the red line, you're busy being busy. In most companies, every individual, every single worker is on the red line. Until someone who's much smaller, who doesn't have to worry about problems, who's opportunity-driven, who creates an app-based company like Uber. You skip web pages. You create app-based companies as light as possible. And not like you, I'm big, I've got problems, you're distracted. They work on the blue line. So the blue line is the line where you create delight. The red line is where you automate the car. The blue line, you ask yourself, if I'm unlocking the biggest amount of human time we've ever unlocked, and I've got this amazing amount of digital attention, how do I commercialize it? The red line is for us to do MOOCs or online teaching. The blue line is how do we become your lifelong partner when it comes to your educational well-being? How can I, as QUT, know more about what you know than yourself? How do I know more about what you need to know than yourself? And that's what our students want. Our students say, the day I graduate, Michael, I want that you keep me intellectually up to date, because I will be busy being busy. Can you do the same to me, like my medical service partner or my bank? Today, you can't buy this service from anyone. So this is blue line business for universities in the future. The red line is cost resilience. The blue line is revenue resilience. The red line is reacting to today's problem, and we know how to do this. The blue line is capitalizing on tomorrow's opportunity. Blue line is opportunity-driven. Red line is reactive. We work with a large bank. 10 years ago, they gave us a process and asked us to streamline it. Today, they ask us, how do we make more money out of location-based services? Blue line. So the changes in questions tells you how we move from red to blue. Our research shows this is roughly a 1 to 1,000 ratio in good companies. One person, $1, 1 hour spent above the line, 1,000 below the line. And these are extreme cases. In many cases, it's less than 1. So the blue line is where you shape tomorrow, where you become revenue resilient. If you don't work on that blue line, you can be top right corner, like Kodak, and the whole world will come to you and look at your brilliant red line. But if profit is revenue minus cost, it doesn't matter how cost efficient you are if revenue moves towards zero. And so this is this notion of revenue resilience that has to complement cost resilience. And to summarize this, I call this value chain 2.0. So Michael Porter told us how we keep the lights on. Procurement, operations, sales, and some secondary activities. He didn't tell us how we change. Most companies are beyond recognizing that they have to work on the blue line. They are beyond recognizing that they have to innovate. But what their struggle is to innovate on scale. As I highlighted, we work with Australia Post, and if an organization and their business model is threatened and your revenue disappears very quickly, a bit of innovation is not good enough. You have to innovate on scale. So what we want to do over the next years to do to our innovation systems what we've done to our enterprise systems, and to improve innovation efficiency, effectivity, productivity, and quality. We can't forecast the future, but I'm sure we can reduce the uncertainty about the future. So this is this notion of innovation systems. Again, you can't buy them today. But without innovation systems, your innovation will be so risky. And now much you talk about, we all tolerate failure, we want to fail fast. Failure is very expensive. And if failure and a certain risk becomes an entry barrier, we might like innovation, we just can't afford it. So we have to make innovation affordable. And this is why I think we need to reinvest our skills on process design in the space of innovation. So where we are, we understand we want to become revenue resilient, we want to work on the blue line, and potentially want to go beyond some brainstorming and some hope that we get a lot of ideas. And I just give you one source of inspiration, what I call the digital mind. So I present 7 habits of a digital mind that might give you an idea. And the core of this is that organizations have to take part in the life of people. And in most cases, they don't. In most cases, they hope that you call them or that you come to their web page. You can see with Qantas how now they stopped creating a boarding pass. The boarding pass meant you take part in the life of Qantas. If I send you the boarding pass, or kind of facilitate your flight, I take part in your life. It's a very simple way of thinking. We will do proactive education, not reactive education. We have a master in biofabrication where we teach our students how to use 3D printing for body parts. Hardly anybody Googles the master of biofabrication at QUT. So searching is not the problem, finding is. We have to take part in the life of health service professionals and have to understand who would benefit from a deeper understanding of 3D printing capabilities. So here are the 7 traits. And I take you through all 7 from the top left to the bottom right. And these are mega trends. So they're not like 3D printing, social computing, or mobile devices. We hope that these 7 elements survive the next 10 years. And we don't know what technology we have. The first one. If you want to become revenue resilient, and revenue is a lagging indicator, we need some leading indicators. And one leading indicator could be your share of digital attention. Companies with a digital mind measure the share of digital attention. Companies who live in the age of automation don't. With other words, the higher your share of attention is when I use my little device, the higher is the likelihood that some of this attention converts into revenue. So we work with Woolworths, and we understand that in some cases, customers might use an Apple Fire Phone to go shopping, and every time they click buy it, buy it, buy it, it's on an Amazon page. So you can see I've got your physical, but not your digital attention. I'll show you one little video that makes this clear, and now I take you to Guatemala, where health and safety standards are slightly different.
Yeah, I'm in the Nike store. There he is. He's getting the message. There's a promotion for Meatpack. I think so. Yeah, we got him. Big bubble gum!
Meatpack is the trendiest shoe store in Guatemala, a brand known for its edgy, cutting style and a store known for its unique discounts in limited edition kicks including brands like Adidas, Nike and Reebok. An icon for the sneakerhead subculture with over 60,000 fans on their fan page in less than a year. They needed to launch a new promotion that lived up to their hardcore fans, an innovative way to earn your discount. We created Hijack, an enhancement for the official Meatpack app used by our customers. Using GPS tracking technology that marks every competitor's store of the brand sold at Meatpack. So every time one of our sneakerheads enters one of the stores, it triggers a special notice with a promotion. Hijack sends an alert to the person's mobile with a discount that starts at 99% and decreases by 1% every second that goes by, making the countdown stop until you reach our store. More than 600 customers were hijacked from the competitors in a week. One customer, Pedro Rodriguez, got a record-breaking 89% discount. This is the first promo campaign that started the sale in the competitors' stores.
So you can see how the company that has a higher share of digital attention steals you away. I seriously suggested we should create the QUT app, the device and the app that you get on day one. Because I might talk, but then you get distracted and consume knowledge from somewhere else. So B2C entities will have a massive appetite to accelerate this. In the world in 5 years, when B2C will become B2T, business to thing, you have to ask yourself, what's my share of the digital attention of a car? You need fuel, you need petrol, you need a car park. Who could commercialize it? So B2C will become B2T, and the notion of digital attention matters there, of course, in the same extent. The second one is, once I've got your attention, you produce signals. Either the things you're using, the car that has an accident, and the car manufacturer will sell the data to ambulance service providers. So it's a data stream with commercial value, and the ambulance will arrive. And all of this happens while you're maybe unconscious in your car. We all know that Rolls-Royce, of course, is monitoring your engine and will fix them before you know that something is damaged. And the quantified yourself. Then doctors will offer services and say, I happily collect the digital signals, and I'll tell you when things need to be escalated in terms of healthcare. So these are new engagement models where you come to the customer, they won't come to you. And they expect that you take part in their life. That doesn't mean that they put these signals on Twitter or Facebook. They look for a trusted provider. Michael, I trust QUT. I let you take part in my life so that you can tell me what I need to know. You're my insurance company. I share my assets with you so you can modify my home and content insurance, or if I travel, replace home and content with travel insurance. I don't want to call you. I don't want to read any policies. So this is about finding and not searching. The third one is, it's about gaining my share of digital attention, collecting digital signals, and the third one is, customers will bring their own data. So some of you might recall a time when companies talked about bring your own device a couple of years ago. Yeah, when companies were struggling with this notion of bring your own device. Now companies struggle with bring your own data. Combank is a nice example. I'm a Combank customer. I bring my Facebook network, and Combank facilitates that I transfer money to my Facebook friends. I think today that's the second most popular way of mobile banking in Australia, by the way. And Combank is one of the very few in the world that is actually doing this. L'Oreal, yesterday in the Australian, had an app where more or less you bring your own data, in this case your face, and you can try 4,500 types of makeup before you buy. So you bring your own data into the conversation. Our students want to press a like it button, or maybe dislike button after some lectures, but they can't. So we don't tolerate that they bring their own data. And we know some retailers where customers look at a product and said, I don't want to talk to your sales dude here. I'm going to ask one of my friends who bought this product. Can you tell me who of my friends bought your product? You can't? I can't bring my own data? I can't bring my own data into this interaction? And so bringing your own data is a big challenge. And as I highlighted, mywave.me is, for me, one of the thought leaders in that space. Funny enough, it's the former CEO of SAP who created this. It's like an SAP for families. The next one requires a quick introduction. And so this is about how companies create value. 2,000 years ago, you were hunters and collectors, natural capital. Then you created organizations and created organizational capital, and you shared your work. Then Henry Ford and others created economic capital. We built assets so we can produce cars. When every car was black, we needed branding, and symbolic capital emerged. And companies like BMW might charge a margin of $10,000 just because of this sticker in front of the car. And then human expertise mattered. And in order to decompose complexity, large consulting companies provided human capital. And what we enter now is the age of social capital. You're a bank and you make money out of maybe home loans. Well, that's a commodity red line product. Your key competitive advantage might be the fact that you know more homeowners than anybody else. But because you're a bank, you can't imagine dealing with homeowners. You can imagine selling financial products. In the age where social capital matters, nobody cares about your products and services. You have to work out what community is undercapitalized. And so we shift this thinking. And companies with an extreme digital mind, Strava, the internet of cyclists, Google, the emerging internet of car drivers, think like this. Companies that are 100 years old, all they can imagine, I've got these products that I somehow have to sell. True customer centricity might mean true community centricity. So here are a number of companies that are doing this. Here in Sydney, UNSW, they use their alumni network to facilitate jobs for current students. Companies that create digital communities get better with every new customer. That's your test. Do I get better with every new customer? Most companies, the answer is no. Every digital company, the answer is yes. You do this well, and the size of your customer base becomes a massive market entry barrier. You don't do this at all, and someone like PayPal rocks up and gobbles up revenue of a bank. Because for me, as a banking customer, I can't see any difference between being the only customer or one of 10 million. So that's a piece of massive research for us. How do we create these positive network effects? You don't create them, and anyone who's small, light on assets, and driven by opportunities is a threat to your revenue. Next one is what Airbnb, Uber, Axiom, and others are doing really well. It doesn't matter who's on your payroll. Natalie talked about membership and not ownership. That's how Uber works. I've got members, they're not on my payroll. I scale up and scale down whatever way I want. The quote here is from Axiom and say, well, forget everything you know about legal services. They work totally differently. So you just on the spot crowdsource. DHL in Stockholm, when they go out, deliver the parcel in downtown Stockholm and then advertise the parcel to citizens who take the parcel home to their neighbors. I'm DHL, no more trucks. I deliver parcels, I generate micro revenue, and I'm your neighbor, and I most likely get the parcel before anybody else would deliver it from DHL. So this is access versus ownership. The next one is how do I digitize assets? So many Australian companies are heavy on assets, they're not light on assets. The digital world allows us to give access to idle assets. In the age of automation, we streamline boarding and check-in at the airport. In the age of digitization and social capital, we ask ourselves, what can I do with all those guys waiting for departure to Hawaii? And what digital service can I offer? Very different way of thinking. Automation, streamlining versus opportunity, community thinking. 65% of the time, a taxi driver will not drive. what could you do with 1,000 people who apparently come from 50 countries and speak 50 languages? And it's like a call center on wheels. And I'll show you one more video from Sweden to give you an idea what can be done. Now imagine your Australia Post.
The reasons behind this project is that we see an increased demand in the society for online shopping and deliveries to your home. And via the solutions we have in our cars, Volvo On Call and the Sensors Connect, we can provide digital keys that will provide people, organizations and companies direct access to our cars for deliveries or pickups.
What we can see is from the consumer's perspective that they will free up time to make use of a more fun and convenient way. And also for our partners, we can see that they are making use of their time, saving both money and mileage.
Giving a delivery company access to my car with a digital key, I thought that was a perfect solution, and I felt completely safe. There was never an issue if that would be misused or anything. It felt safe and quite fine for me.
It's B2B, so how it works, you go to your favorite retailer webpage, and then the question comes, where do you want me to ship the products? And you say, to my car. Volvo takes part in your life. At that moment, Volvo will tell the retailer, where's the car, color, number plate, and here's the digital key. And then you deliver. So this is how you utilize an idle asset. So we talked to a car insurance company a while ago, and we asked them, understand that 3.5% of the time your customers are using their car. What happens on the other 96.5%? You take a plane in San Francisco, New York, or LA, and the car park provider would say, Michael, if you don't mind, while you're away for 5 days, I take your car and I rent it out. When you come back, your car will be washed full of petrol, and there's a $300 check. The alternative is you pay $40, $80, or if it's Brisbane, $400. So this is how you utilize idle assets. So everybody tries to get a slice of the idle asset called car. Your manufacturer, your car insurer, your car park provider, and so on. The second item I want to make here is, imagine your Australia Post. Now you've just seen a kind of mobile mailbox. How do I make sure that I overcome, I don't know what I don't know? And so we're working on the idea of innovation TV. Because the biggest roadblock to innovation, in particular in Australia, is I don't know what I don't know. And companies have to find a way to overcome this. We now give seminars to companies, and they've got no clue what we talk about. They just subscribe to 8 lecture talks, and only in that moment they realize what we actually talk about. To very consciously overcome the I don't know what I do not know. Last item is creating new products. Oyster farmer in Tasmania puts sensors into the soil. Patrick, you talked about the Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything. So we produce data. Now, most companies, when they talk about big data, all they can imagine is, let's hire some data scientists and do some data mining. In the future, you have data economists. I've got far too much data than what I really need. Could I sell this? So we try to create an eBay for data, and that this oyster farmer keeps on sending oysters one way and data another way. So what you do is you create a complete new revenue stream based on data you have anyway. And so I think what happens and what is needed in Australia, that we accelerate innovation, move beyond should we innovate to how do we innovate on scale, fast, efficiently, and effectively. And I believe that in particular, and I'm biased here, of course, Australian universities can play a massive role in accelerating ideation and incubation, because building innovation systems might take too long for some companies. And your profit and loss statement in 5 years might be in a shape that you won't survive. Here are the 4 main takeaways, and I very much appreciate, again, the opportunity to share my ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I really enjoyed that. Is there any questions from the audience? Great, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, I'm Mariana Pinker from Food Innovation Australia. I'll stand up since I'm Michael, I was at a conference yesterday, and apologies, Alan, for not being here. But it was a creative innovation conference, and Dr. Larry Marshall, from the new chief of CSIRO, he talked about the American market. And one of the things he talked about was also the digital age and how it's impacted, which was fantastic. But he said, he's talking about innovation on scale, and I'm not quite sure if you mean scaling up, or is it actually everyone innovates and therefore that's the scale you're referring to. But he said most of the growth in America over the last 30 years hasn't been attributed to large companies, it's been attributed to startups. So I just wanted you to get your insights on, when you talk about innovation on scale, I wasn't quite sure if you meant at an individual level and we all need to innovate, or is it large companies trying to scale up and get bigger and bigger?
Yeah. I think I have two answers to this question. I never would make a statement that everybody has to innovate. I think it can be quite dangerous for some companies. And only 1% of all humans are ambidextrous, red line and blue line. So a lot of people just can't innovate, and a lot of people hate transactions. When I say on scale, I mean that you're able to run 40 design innovation projects and not 3. So you don't rely on some talented facilitator, an HBR article, a bunch of PowerPoint slides and whiteboards. When I'm large, I'm running out of revenue, I need to generate new revenue streams very quickly. That's what I mean. Have 10 and not 3 projects.
Is that for the success rate? So you're saying that perhaps, traditionally innovation, 1 in 10 will survive. Is that the reason why you're saying do more?
My metric would be make 1 in 2 successful. Innovate in 3 months and not in 3 years. So I'm brutally honest about the idea of trying to streamline without killing creativity. So we studied how you make Hollywood blockbusters. There are pockets of creativity that you don't touch in a movie, but there are a lot of transactional activities when you make a blockbuster. And I imagine you could do the same to innovation. The second question was around, is future growth coming from SMEs? I think we have to do a better job between bringing Startup Australia and Corporate Australia together. And what you see in some countries, that large corporations become like a venture capitalist and say, instead of money, or in addition to money, I give you access to my assets as well. So you are into, let's say, retail innovation, and I'm a large retailer. Why would I not act like a venture capitalist and parachute all these mini entrepreneurs? Maybe all they need is assets, customers or inventory or whatever, and not money at all. And if we do this, I think we can get somewhere. I still believe organizations like Qantas or Combank are incredibly innovative, despite this size.
Just one more over there.
So yeah, I work for Department of Transport, and it's often deemed a grudge purchase, I guess. So what you've been talking about a lot is, I guess, people's proactive choice about improving life and whatnot. Do you think there is room to think like this in grudge purchases, which are the ones people, I guess, people have to make to get through life, I guess?
You mean public transport?
Yeah, public transport. Yes.
Yeah. So.
And so things like insurance, things like that, are all in the same category as well.
So I'm a very uncreative person. I was in Gothenburg recently, and we tried to use these patterns, and we took them to a public transport company. One of them was underutilized assets. In Gothenburg, they now try out gyms on a train. So you might go for an hour every day. Would that be a time frame where you like to exercise? I don't know if the answer is yes or no. All I say is, if you think about underutilized assets, and it's not just your train, it's the passenger for 1 hour, what would they do? Why would public transport not aggressively talk to universities about mobile education? So that's what I mean. I don't say these are answers. All I say is, if you think like this, you could create something that goes beyond idle and unproductive time. Maybe I want to learn, improve my educational or physical well-being. So my hope is that this kind of thinking can unlock these ideas. You then need, of course, incubation to test them.
Okay. So please put your hands together to